The next station is Farringdon. Change for National Rail Services.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform.
What's good about London is that people see the camera and no one cares. Whereas in other places like Birmingham, people are in shock. They're like, stand and they stop and look at see what's going on and stuff. But here, no one gives a damn, which makes life slightly easier for me.
We're live in the booth, in the garden. We're in Farringdon, in the fence. A little bit nippy, but for February we'll take it. I'm with an old friend of mine, Anthony. Say hello.
Hi,
So who are you?
I'm Anthony Laville, and tell me what you want to know.
So what are you doing in London?
London, so I've got a few meetings today, one of which is this podcast interview, and followed by a meeting with a couple of people I know just to catch up. And a meetup that I'm hosting, so I'm hosting a meetup in Piccadilly, and it's for people that have reached out to me in the past that want to meet up and talk property business and I suppose moving forward, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm doing today.
Nice, okay. So I want to get into all of that. I want to talk to you a bit more about what you're up to with your life. So we've got a decade to catch up on. So for our listeners, we went to university together over a decade ago, and I saw you put some content out. We're actually filming today, so there might be a few photos, some high-res images of this beautiful setting of the fence in Farringdon. And I just saw you had a lot of energy. It looked like you had some momentum, well shot by our man Chris. And I just thought, you know what, we're doing this podcast, we're trying to get the inside scoop on people who are up and coming. Let's see if you'd be up for it. So thanks for agreeing to do it. So I guess just want to get into a bit more about what's going on in your life and understand. I think obviously you're in property. We're going to hear about the property, but I also want to hear about the inside story of what's going on with you in trying to make that journey happen. So let's go to the start of the journey. I mean, there's probably some backstory, but tell us about the business and how you got to the point where you decided to start a business, how you came to the decision to do this particular business as well.
Thanks for having me, by the way. Yeah. So I've always had an interest in business. I'd say from the age of about 11, 12, there was this thing, I wanted to be a businessman, whatever that meant.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a businessman, I wanted to be a boss, I wanted to make my own decisions. Maybe it's because I don't like being told what to do, so maybe that was probably a big driver for me.
Yeah.
So certainly I think that sort of dictated the course of things. As sort of life went on, I tried a few ventures and whatnot, and as I started to go through education, I always thought maybe I'll get a job first, get the experience in that field, and then go start up on my own. But in between time, I was trying various ventures, and then I moved on to eventually one that stuck, which was a student lettings company.
Yeah.
So we did lettings and management for various purpose-built student accommodation providers. So these are the large providers of student halls. You may have, I don't know if you stayed with them, but providers like Unite, Manchester, Victoria Hall. So we were doing a bunch of lets for them across the country, across the UK, as far as Scotland, Wales, England. So we're doing thousands of lets for them, and as well as lets and management for HMOs and landlords, so houses of multiple occupation. And from that point, sort of through doing that business, it led me to where I am now.
Okay, nice. So you were trying stuff out. So you've been somebody who's been tinkering entrepreneurially. Is that a word? You've been entrepreneurial for a while. Is that something you were as a kid? Is it something you've seen your family do? Where's that mindset, do you think, originate from?
I think it's more about controlling my own destiny and making my own decisions, and probably not being told what to do in a sense, I suppose, or just being my own and being very independent. So I think that's what it's come down to, and naturally, working life dictates a large part of your life. So if you're working for somebody, then naturally you're going to be at the mercy of what they want you to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they want you to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it was just a natural. I think it was more just a natural stepping decision for my well-being and who I am as a person, rather than really wanting to do business. So I think really wanting to do business stemmed from me wanting to be independent.
Yeah.
And thus, I'm in business.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So it's the drive to be independent. So one thing I'm always fascinated by is the idea that there's almost very little that's predetermined. You are who you are because of your circumstances and your DNA. So you're shaped by those two things, and to an extent, as I said, those are out of your control. Your brain is what it is, and it will absorb the information it does because of the world it was in. So there's something to say that people are who they are because of those two factors. There's actually very little outside that control. What do you think about that? Firstly, about the ability, like how your circumstance shapes you versus your ability to say no, I want to change your destiny. And do you think there's anything in particular that has put the idea of being a businessman at some point? Is there anything you can point to and say, I saw this happen, or this experience made me want that freedom? So I know it might be getting a bit personal, so if you want to stay clear of some
that's
things.
fine. So remind me what the first question was again.
So like
Mindset and-
do you, like basically predeterminism. Do you think that there's such a thing as like do you have that autonomy as a human, or is it you're born and then your DNA in that circumstance makes you that human? There's no other way you could be.
So is it more of a question of are you born an entrepreneur or can you learn it? Is that
I
sort of
suppose so,
thing?
yeah.
In a sense. Well, first of all, I'd definitely say it's learned behaviour. And look, we're all, dealt certain cards when we're born, and you can't choose the circumstances you're brought up in, or the people that bring you up necessarily, especially when you're a child. So again, surely that's going to have a massive impact on you as an individual.
Yeah.
And it's down to luck. That's straight down to luck, isn't it? We're born in the UK and we're British. It's a massive bonus.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Imagine being born in sort of the depths or the slums of Brazil or somewhere in India. How difficult would it be to get out then and progress? So I think certainly the way you're brought up has a massive impact, and it can have a massive impact on where you end up. But you definitely, and most certainly, come to a stage where sort of you can make your own decisions and hopefully get to the stage where you realise that actually I can take control of this. I can gain some independence by maybe getting a job, or first of all getting myself in a financial position where I'm responsible for myself and not reliant on anyone else. And then you can move from there and try and make some more autonomous decisions. So certainly I do think, yes, it is determined by that, but I think you've got power to change it later on, for sure. And the other question was, remind me again, mine's gone blank.
No, that's good. That was a good answer. So I like that. It's learned behaviour. So that can build over time. So there's the seed of it, but you choose to develop that part of you. You just decide, and I guess that fire that builds, and you add more to that fire, and it continues to burn. How would you say your mind and that learned behaviour has developed over the last few years as you've taken this business full on now? How many years are you into it?
Working by myself?
Yeah.
Since 2011.
Okay.
So pretty much when I graduated, I went into it full time. So I started off doing lettings whilst I was at uni. So I was finding students for landlords and stuff. And I don't think I found you a house. But and then when I graduated, instead of getting a graduate job or applying for one, I thought, let me go for this full time, because at that point my the upside is sort of huge potentially, and there's next to no downside because I've got no expenses.
Yeah.
I've got very little responsibility financially. I've got no other kind of responsibilities. I wasn't the main caregiver to somebody, so I was quite fortunate in my position that I've graduated uni and the world's my oyster if I wanted to go and travel and work in another country I could do. There's nothing holding me back or any ties. So just being in that position and I sort of in that sentiment also as well, that I was happy to take that risk if you not earn 30, 40 grand or whatever you earn in a starting salary graduate job, and instead earn next to nothing for a few years and try and build a business.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. So you've been at it for a while. It's quite rare. I think there's very few people just jump straight in. So fair play. It's awesome. How would you say you've changed as a business person, and I guess as your mindset, the journey from that first Anthony after university through to now, skills and mindset?
I think that's a very good question. I think that's some deep soul searching there. How have I changed as a business person? As a person?
I think both, yeah.
As a business person, I'd say I'm certainly. I'd like to think I'm more savvy. So I like to think I know what aspects to focus on in a business now, because I've been through a lot of ups and downs, and I think you not only build up a resilience, but you naturally build up experience, and you realise and you work out how to approach business. And successful business people, really successful business people, can generally lend a hand to any sort of business. If you're good at what you do, it's about the approach. So the core aspects remain the same: managing people, managing time, managing resources, where you focus your attention. The core aspects tend to be the same in every business. So I think once you're able to do that well, which I think I'm a lot better at doing, I'm not perfect, and I think I've still got a lot of improvement to do. But once you get to that stage, I think then you'll start to see some more success. But I think one of the biggest things that has helped me and that's changed me is just focusing, working out what my core focus should be. Yeah. And I mean laser focus. Yeah. And just stick at it. Not get sidetracked by another venture or somebody comes up with another idea or another potential aspect to the business. If you've done if you've got a well thought through goal, then you should naturally have that should naturally be your well thought through focus. And so that focus, once you attain that goal, hopefully, well, that goal really should be something that by default sorts out all your other goals and problems. So if your goal is, if someone's got a financial goal to buy a house or a fancy car, you need to work on that thing that's going to get you that. So if you focus on that one thing, then by default the other things get achieved. So if you want to look after your mum, or pay for your mum's mortgage, your dad's mortgage, your parents' house, or whatever it is, or buy somebody a car, then you've got to really focus on something core that fulfills all of those. Yeah. How I've grown up as a person, I definitely think I'm a lot more patient. I think previously, I'm patient with people, and also patient with trying to achieve success. I think a lot of the time, especially when you hear about these unicorns, these startups that are just doing crazy, people doing phenomenally well, you don't hear enough of the sort of the comeback stories, or where people have had downtimes and make it back from that. So I think it's coming more to light now with the likes of podcasts and whatnot. But often what's celebrated is the successes, isn't it? Yeah, definitely successes. Okay. So I think I'm definitely more patient, and I think I've got bigger goals as well. I think I've definitely trained myself, and I'm still training myself to think a lot bigger. So if I've got an idea in mind, if I'm working on a large building project, and it's for instance, one that I'm working on right now is the project value is 7 million. It's a 62 student accommodation scheme. We're going to lend it to make it bigger. How can I do something way bigger than that? Can I do it? Why am I not doing a 500 bedder, which is going to be worth, maybe 40, 50 plus million? Why am I restricted? Because it's the same work involved. So I think it's also about trying to get your head around it and work and reminding yourself that it's all possible.
Yeah.
And it's all within your realm. It's just about doing it.
Yeah. I guess that journey to get to the 500 bedroom building is if you try and jump in and do that from the start, you're punching too high too early. So it is a journey to that. Each time you want to do a little bit more. So you set up a nice segue for like the glossy unicorns. You see the success. So there's obviously stories of failure, and you do hear about some the Michael Jordan's failures, sort of. All the cliches like getting rejected from the basketball team sort of thing. What bumps have you had on the road, and also did those bumps ever knock you to the point where you're thinking about, is this the right? Did you throw doubt, and did you lose faith in yourself and the path you chosen to go down? So yes, any stories around like where they really hit the rubber hit the road?
Oh, I've got quite a few.
Yeah.
I'll give you one. So at this point I was doing lettings and management for my student lettings company for, it might be 3 or 4 years now. So we had a few staff members, I think we had maybe 5-6 staff, all full time, pretty much in the office.
And what year was this?
I started to I think it might have been 2014, 15.
Okay.
2014 or 15.
Yeah.
I try not to think about it too much, to be honest.
Okay.
So things were going okay. We were doing lettings and management, and then it just started to get a bit more challenging doing lets and getting the performance and the results that we need in terms of sales. Things were starting to slow down, and it was just getting tough. And it was getting to a point where it was financially difficult to carry on because we just weren't generating enough sales to pay staff and pay for extra marketing. And so there came a crazy point where I had to I made a decision to let some staff go, and it's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah,
calling people up and telling them, don't bother coming in. Sadly, but there's just the performance isn't there, the results isn't there, and we just can't continue as it is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to let you go. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it takes a bit of courage to make that phone call, or if you're doing it in person, it takes a lot of courage. So
Yeah.
that was a pretty big down. I think as well. From that point, what helped turn it around for me was actually I read a book that really helped. It's called The E-Myth. It's called The E-Myth. It's by someone called Michael E. Gerber.
Letter E.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So E stands for entrepreneur, so it's the E-Myth. And basically the book's about how businesses should be run and structured, and that it's a fallacy that good and successful businesses are run by great and amazing staff and colleagues. What's great and amazing is actually the systems and the processes and the procedures that are put in place, and you don't necessarily need to have the best staff. You can have mediocre staff, but if you've got amazing systems and processes, then your business can do well. And on the flip side, if you've got amazing and phenomenal staff, but your systems and your processes and the rest of it is poor, then your business it's not going to last long. If you've got success for now, it's limited. And the likes of that can be, there's plenty of examples from franchise businesses like McDonald's. McDonald's has a very strict, stringent system where a staff member can come in, read the manual, go for some training, and be plugged into the system straight away. So a staff member within days can be an effective member of staff, generating capital for the company and getting in sales. And a lot of businesses follow that process. So one of the things I did, so as well as that, you need it written. I think one of the mistakes that I certainly made, especially when we were recruiting new staff members and getting them to join the team, was on-the-job training. On-the-job training can be very poor.
Yeah.
Can be an extremely poor way, because there's a risk of that person coming on, picking up the bad habits and not doing things as the way they necessarily should be. But if that's not written and there isn't a written process, then you're going to struggle. So one of the things that I did when I fired like 3 members of staff, 3 or 4 members of staff, it was just left with me and my office manager again. So we sat down next day, we had a meeting. I was like, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a manual now. We're going to have a process, a procedure in place, and everything's going to be written and recorded. We're going to log every phone call, because we were making phone calls as a lettings company and booking in viewings and stuff, but we wouldn't log the call. And that's something that a big company does, but a lot of small companies don't log. A lot of small companies don't log every call and every conversation because maybe they don't think they need to, but we totally flipped everything around and said, look, every contact, text message, phone call, conversation is recorded. Every attempt at a phone call, missed call is recorded. So we just got better at keeping records. And
what did that change?
Changed. We became more efficient. So we became more efficient. So we wrote a manual, which outlined exactly what the business was, what we did, how we went about it, and how to use the system, how to do lets, how to book in viewings, how to conduct a viewing, how to speak to people on the phone. This manual was quite comprehensive in effect, and we also had training videos. So we actually recorded training videos ourselves, me and my office manager, of how to do things. So then, when we eventually started to recruit staff again, we'd give them the manual and say, here you go, here's the manual, here's videos, and they'd be plugged in within a few days compared to weeks of being stopped. Oh, excuse me, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? And that's because of poor training. So when someone's constantly interrupting, or not necessarily interrupting, but constantly asking for help and clarification for their job, which they should rightfully do because they don't understand, it's because more often than not they've been poorly trained and the induction process is not great. So that's something we became amazing at.
Great.
And then we started to really pick up sales, and we started to get really good at what we did, and the processes got crazy in a good way, and we started generating a crazy amount of lets then, and that's when we started working with some of these larger providers that I mentioned earlier, purpose-built accommodation providers. We started generating a bunch of lets, and we were so efficient, and then sort of went from there. So that's the fun.
That's awesome. That's amazing, because I've worked in 6 companies. 2 of them are quite big, the recruitment company, and I've never had proper training ever. It's always been on the job. It seems to be just like, you'll work it out. Especially in sales, it's like you just jump in, you'll work it out. So that's really, so you notice a tangible impact, which is awesome. One thing that I'm learning and have realised is that if you want to start a business, especially in the early days by yourself, your own productivity, your own processes are what determines your output. So I'm naturally unorganised, and I've had to learn to get organised. So in terms of just sort of advice for people who are thinking about starting a business out, from just the early days, what processes can people put in? How can they organise themselves? And what can they do to give themselves a bit of structure, like you've just described, but as an individual for themselves as opposed to other people?
So what I was saying earlier about focus, it's about working out the core activities that really drive and have the most impact to your business. So if those core activities, one of them is naturally going to be, how do I generate income? Surely. So if one of the core activities you need to do is generate income, and you know that the best results you get is when you call up a CEO directly and ask for something, then that's the best way. Or if you know the best results come from you posting on social media, then that should be at the forefront of what you do. So you've got to work out, number one, what's the one main thing that I could do that gives me the most results, and put that at the core of your day. So that's the most important thing. The most important thing should be the first thing you do and the thing that you spend the most time on. So once that's out of the way, then the fallback is maybe some of the back office stuff, and then you can diarise the rest. So I'd say work out the focus and taking it from there.
Okay, nice. So that's a really good tip, and something that I've just picked up on recently is I would block out like 3 priorities and it doesn't happen, you just get overload. It's just one thing. So let's get into a bit more detail on that, because I think this is stuff that's really practical. What's your process, like routine in the morning? How do you kick your day off? How do you end your day? How do you keep on top of it throughout the day?
So in the morning I usually get up about, these days, depending on that snooze button, but it's usually somewhere between 5 and 6 a.m.
Okay.
And do a yoga, do a stretch, sometimes have a bit of a workout in the morning, and then about 7 o'clock I get my little one ready and take him off to nursery, come back home by 8 o'clock, and I'm working. Okay. So from 8 o'clock I'm working on my focus, my most important aspects, and that usually includes writing. So at least, I'll say writing, I dictate these days, so I like to put out my thoughts and content out there as well. Yeah. And it's a good way to realise where you're at yourself in your own head, and realise what position you're in.
So you feedback mentally to yourself with that on the mic.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's actually to produce an article. Oh, right. So it's still an article that I'll put out. So if it's not too personal and it's not too intrusive, or although sometimes those can be good, I'll put that article out. So if I'm thinking about something related to a project I'm working on, and I think, wow, that was really impactful for me and that helped, and I'll write about it and put it out. So that helps to get my thoughts out. Nice. And deal finding. So most of my time now is spent on finding deals, so property deals, sites, potential sites that can be developed into residential apartment buildings or student accommodation, and finance. So working with, finding JV partners to work with, but that usually comes from within the network itself. So that usually works out really well. So the two main focuses for me. Yeah. Well, the one main focus is deals, and then secondary is the finance bit. So for me, my main focus, my number one, is deals. So the motto that I like to tell myself is deals solves everything. So as long as I've got the deal, I've got the control. I can bring in a JV partner. I can do it myself. I can get planning permission on it. I can do whatever. But I control it. I've got the real asset there, the commodity. So deals solve everything. What was your other question? Just
productivity tips, how you're structuring your day, and I think for people who are if you could go back and tell Antti at university, what could he do better, or what could people who are thinking of starting a business? Because I know I sat in my flat trying to be overloaded by 100 different tasks and end up paralysed almost by the amount of work I had to do. So how would you give some advice to your old self and other people thinking about starting a business?
There's a you know, it's funny because a lot of this thing comes back down to focus, but there's a great quote that I read once, and it was, success is sequential. And that clearly means, one at a time. You complete that task, then you move on to the next one. Yeah. And then you complete that, then you move on to the next one. So if you're overloaded again, you find the most important thing or task that will have the most impact, and you complete that first, and then you move on to the next one. Yeah. And that's how I think. That's how I diarise what I do. So I look at my emails. I don't even open the email. I can usually tell by the subject and who it's from. Yeah. If it's going to need some attention. Yeah. Immediately, and take it from there. Okay. So another thing that I also think of is just. Have you heard of Run DMC, the group? Yeah. It's funny, but I like to say Run. For me, it's Run DMC. So DMC stands for deals, meetings, content. Okay. So that's how I run my day. So deals come first, and then it's about meeting people. Yeah. Because that's where opportunities come in. And that's where real work gets done. Yeah. Not over the phone, not through messaging, not emails. The real progress and work gets done by face to face meetings. I cannot stress that enough. That's one of the biggest things that I've learned. have more face-to-face meetings.
Okay, that's great.
So deals first for me, then meetings,
Yeah.
and then content. How can I put out content that will intrigue and interest people? And then, you know, what do you get back from that? Well, generally people send me deals, and then people reach out to me to meet me, and then I produce more content, and it's content again, and that's the order. TMC. Run it. Do you know, that's what I need to put. I need to put out some kind of meme or some kind of picture
It's
on my
great.
Instagram.
It's very true. You put a lot of thought into that, and it's very true.
For my definitely gonna put that across the YouTube and the Instagram and stuff.
You just
Run
think of
DMC.
that?
No. I've
good
never
thing about
told
it.
anyone.
Okay.
This is actually the first time I've mentioned it to anyone.
Nice. I'm honoured.
And but it's just how I operate. So that's how I run myself and my business. I run DMC.
Yeah. I love that. There's a few things in there. So the fact that you're firstly deals is, as a salesperson who's been fired from a few sales jobs, getting caught up in getting fancy with campaigns and projects, and actually just losing focus on just creating conversations that lead to deals. I think you're right. You need to make sure you get something thrown through the door first. That's a great little nugget. There was something else you picked up on. I'll come back to it. In terms of focus, then, because focus is like it's macro and it's micro. It's like you have to be aligned at all levels. Something I spent probably a little bit too much time on was trying to work out, like, why am I doing this? Do you do that? Do you have like a vision you've painted out for yourself, and how is that helping you trickle back? And how do you, like, so brilliant, you've got, I've got to do deals. How do you keep yourself disciplined so that you don't slope off at 11 o'clock because you've had a really good morning, and then you go, fancy just like going for some food or going to meet a mate, and you sort of, how do you keep that discipline and that focus, and how does that tie into the vision at the top end as well?
Look, I'm not perfect. Like, I might have a YouTube spree,
Yeah.
or an Instagram spree.
Yeah.
Instagram is the devil sometimes, but it's also amazing.
Yeah.
I love Instagram. But discipline, I think it's just about the ultimate goal. I think look, I suppose something I tell myself sometimes is like, you're not serious. Like, you're not, and not just that, I don't feel it either. So if I don't feel serious, if I start messing about or doing something that's not in line with my goals, I can actually feel it in my body that I'm wasting time, and I think a lot of people probably can.
Yeah.
And it's whether you play into that or you ignore it. So if you get that feeling and that vibe and that you're wasting time when you're not doing something that's productive or that's conducive to your end goal, then you know. So staying disciplined now, I think it's easier to stay disciplined when you're focused and you've got one thing to think of and one thing to concentrate on mainly.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. So that always helps with in that regard. And reminding yourself, look, you're allowed to have a break. You're allowed to go on a YouTube spree every now and again.
Giving yourself that space to be human.
Exactly, you've got to step away. I think a lot of the time people forget to, sometimes you get too caught up in the working and you don't step away enough and have a look at the bigger picture. But what you were saying before about the macro and the micro, 100% agree. So look, my macro in a business sense is to have an extremely large portfolio of properties that are held for long-term investment. Phenomenally large.
Nice.
So that's the macro. But how do I get there?
Yeah.
On the micro level is deal by deal.
Yeah.
Now, I may not be able to cut 1,000 bed accommodation, £100 million deals every time, but I can do it. Something I like to, a hashtag that I'm using recently, and I think I'm going to continue to use for sure, is big deals only. And big deals only, it's not just about trying to do significant deals, it's about pushing your own boundaries. So I mentioned to you earlier about a deal I'm working on, which is a £7 million project. My goal is, I'm working on much larger deals than that. But what my thoughts are, how do I continually push that? How can I continually get past that level? How can I get my head around doing a £150 million apartment complex deal or a mixed use scheme? But the big deals only, and pushing your boundaries and working outside of your comfort zone is the thing that gets you there.
Yeah.
And that's, and I think that's another thing that, when I was saying earlier about the feeling and the vibe you get, when I'm not pushing myself is when I feel, when I'm not outside of my comfort zone, I feel nervous.
Interesting, because you're not meeting your expectations.
Because I'm not pushing myself.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I think that's benefited me somewhat, is because I get this feeling and I think, damn, I need to step it up, because this isn't. I want. It's a weird feeling, but I want to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I want to feel like, what am I doing?
Yeah. Why?
This is out of my league.
Why?
I want to feel like that, but I'm not feeling it at the moment.
Are you not?
No, because I keep pushing it. So when I first started doing and working on bigger deals, I maybe got it for a split second, but once I was in it, and it's like, damn, I need to move up. So I think fortunately that's something that works for me, just being on a constant pull or push to push myself, my boundaries. And you know what, this big deal's only a part of it, and a part of that movement, if you like, my own personal movement, is that the small things get you the big things. So the small deals can also get you the big deals. So don't neglect some of the small stuff.
Yeah.
But have the big deal in mind.
I like that. You've got some great sound bites. You need to start trademarking these.
I think so.
I think there's only just a great mindset. And the other nugget you just gave before was just face to face, make stuff happen. And I can't agree more, because like when you go to a sales interaction, if you can get at the meeting, if you can get someone to agree to meet you, there's something in human nature, I think, they just feel compelled to agree to a next step. And you almost never go to a meeting if you've got anything to offer where they're like, no. I think I've been to one meeting where they've said, this isn't for us. It's like, it doesn't happen. Usually, I mean, whether or not that comes with anything afterwards, but in terms of if you want to make stuff happen, go meet people. Like, social media is brilliant, email's brilliant, but realistically, if you want to make shit happen, you've got to go get in front of people. And I mean, the size of the transactions you're talking about, it's not going to happen without getting in front of people, going on the ground. So we've jumped onto the iPhone in case the sound sounds different. I need to work out my technical. It's still early TV days, so when we've got a studio and 10 million followers, we have to come back in with another episode.
Brilliant. I love that.
So we've covered a lot of ground. I think just to close out, we were talking about practical tips. So I think books you've read that, if any, or media you've consumed that's changed your mindset significantly, how you stay sharp on that front, how you keep your sword sharp, and then advice you tend to give out when people come and ask what advice are people asking for, and what are you offering back to them that's really hitting home for people and resonating.
So firstly, advice, what people are asking me for. Generally, a lot of people, I call them kids, not kids, they're younger than me. I like to call them kids, no disrespect or anything, it's just young people. So I get kids reaching out, and they're between the ages of 18 and 22, 23, and they ask me advice about property and stuff, which is fine, I give them. And a bunch ask me to be their mentor and all that sort of stuff, and that's not something I do, or I'm interested in really at this stage. But I most certainly try and give as much guidance and as much help as I can. Yeah. What else they ask me? Sometimes they ask me specific questions about a property that they're looking to buy or sell, or any other query related to investing, and I regularly answer those. And just a lot of well wishes. A lot of people reaching out daily, which is good. So I'm still building my following. I've got a very small following at the moment.
Yeah. What are you up to?
But it seems to be resonating. I think just got a couple of thousand on Instagram.
Strong.
And a few hundred on a few hundred subscribers on YouTube, and I'm on LinkedIn and stuff. Got a few thousand connections. Just all very small at the moment, but it's growing, and I think the content seems to be resonating with people, which is a good thing, which I'm pleased about. You know, I don't need millions of followers, but it would be nice. A lot of it's just about building your profile and distribution, and just making yourself a bit more known.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's nice having people reach out. So I can only imagine what it's like for people that are actually huge and have a huge following. It must be absolutely nuts. Because sometimes I get actually tired of it. Sometimes you're like, oh God, I've been doing this for like an hour and a half, 2 hours now. I mean, I love it. It's just that when you're doing anything for too long, you feel a bit tired.
Yeah.
But it's great. So no, I look forward to like connecting and communicating and having dialogue with plenty more people. So I'm on Instagram, YouTube.
Just give us your handles and all those. How can we find you?
So my Instagram is just Anthony Laville, ANTHONYLAVILLE, Anthony Laville. My YouTube is Anthony S Laville. Twitter is Anthony S Laville. I think my YouTube is Anthony S Laville. Just put in Anthony Laville. Fortunately, there's not many Anthony Lavilles out there.
Yeah, you're right there.
So if you Google my name, my stuff comes up, Instagram and YouTube. So Instagram and YouTube are my main sort of outlets, and LinkedIn. Instagram, YouTube and LinkedIn. So most certainly, please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. Get in touch, DM me on Instagram. Let me know if you want to see some extra content, or if you want to, if you've got an idea or some kind of collaboration relating to my focus, and that also helps out your focus. Then who knows, maybe there's something there.
Nice. Okay. And what about any mind-bending books? What things? What content, movies, articles, stuff? What have you consumed over the last 5 years, 6 years of your journey that have really stood out and like shaped the way you think about things?
Well, apart from watching myself back sometimes.
Modest.
Some of the like, two of the most impactful books I can think of right now that I've read: E-Myth, the E-Myth that I mentioned earlier by Michael E. Gerber.
Yeah.
And the other book is called The One Thing by Gary Keller. So they both relate. They both pretty much relate to focus and relate to focusing on the right things.
Yeah.
And having the right processes in place. So the two biggest books that I think I've written has had the most impact. And funnily enough, neither are property related. So I have a lot of people reaching out to me that say they ask me for book recommendations. I mean, that happens weekly, and I'll just say, then I don't really have many. Read all of them. Read as many property books as you can, just so you can understand the strategies and what's out there. But actually, the real progress and everything comes from the focus, the mindset, the setting yourself big goals, audacious goals, and working out how you're going to achieve those. So that's where I think it's at.
Okay. My thing with books recently has been just actually create your own book journey, and like even though I've asked you for a book recommendation, it's nice to hear stuff people that really like hits home for people. But actually, you absorb a book a lot more when you take ownership of it, and it's your decision to read that book, and it's the right book for you at that time. So I think one thing with books is think about what do you really need to learn at this point. Do I need to be productive? Do I need to learn about how to focus? What is the question that you need to really address at that point in your life? Go find the best book on that particular subject, and you're much more likely to feel that sense of pride and ownership and start running around telling everyone else about it when you take that ownership of your book journey, as opposed to just running around asking for book recommendations. So this has been awesome. Really good to catch up with you again. Hopefully it's not 10 years till I see you next time.
Crazy no one's been on.
Yeah, man. So I just want to finish on the final cliche question, which is, I'm a guy who's thinking. I've got an idea, and I'm umming and ahhing. I'm not sure I'm up to the challenge. I don't know if I'm an entrepreneur. This entrepreneur title is bestowed on me, millionaires and billionaires, and I've got this idea. I'm telling my friends, I think, but how do I? What advice have you got for me about? Like, what do I do? How do I get my head in the zone? Yeah.
So you've got an idea. You're not basically. I think it's about people afraid to make the jump.
Exactly.
So maybe you're afraid of what other people think. It's about, my opinion, from what the sounds of it, is a lot of the time it's about people not caring about what other people think of them and not caring if they failed or not.
Yeah.
Once you get over that, once you learn internally and you're comfortable with who you are and the decisions you're making for yourself, then it doesn't matter if somebody thinks negatively or say something negatively of you. It should just, have zero impact at all. So I think once you get to that stage, or try and build yourself to that stage where it's about self-confidence, realising that you're the only person that can really impact what you do and how you progress and how you move along. Yeah. And hopefully, your mind and the rest of your actions should follow. And if you think it's for you, it's for you. And if you think it's not for you, then it's not for you. So it's all about decisions, isn't it? It's about decisions and motives. But I don't know who it was it Henry Ford that saying, if you think you can, then you can. If you think you can't, you probably can't. I think that thing is the most true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you've got balls and self-belief, then I think almost anything is possible. Do you know what I love though, when I've seen, I remember I went to the Wireless Festival a few years ago, and I've seen some big artists before, like Big Sean, and who else was performing? It was Future,
Kendrick.
and J. Cole. I don't think Kendrick was there. There's some big artists, and it's funny how they, like, a lot of them took their time. I found it so interesting. Just talked to the crowd, and they were saying, look, if you dream, like, trust me, you can do it. If you dream and you believe, you can do it. And I totally believe that. A lot of people look at things and they think it's not for them. Which for me, personally, I find bonkers. Because I think, if I see someone doing it, I think, well, I should be able to do more. Not the same. Why can't I do more? Maybe it's a competition thing, maybe it's an ego thing. But ego's not bad sometimes.
Not always the worst. Mate, on that note, we'll end. Thank you so much.
Great.
With just to the sound of trains. Perfect.